A village in the mountains has been constantly attacked by an S-rank Fenrir, so they spent all their savings hiring an SS rank party to defeat it. The Flaming Dragon Fang party is filled with some of the strongest adventurers, each with their unique skills, except for Kurt. Kurt's main talent: doing chores. He's hiding behind a wall to avoid getting hurt when the Fenrir arrives and attacks him first. After being sent flying, the rest of the party gears up for battle. Guv orders Bandana to restrain the beast, and she ties it up, but the Fenrir breaks her back against a wall. But with Marfus around, she's healed in seconds and back on her feet. Using a tree as an anchor, she gives Guv a chance to aim for the Fenrir's head, and he sets it ablaze with his magic sword. The villagers are so thrilled that they prepare a feast, even though they're nearly broke. But Guv, he hates the peasant food and demands CT cook something better for him. Bandana asks for something special, since it's Kurt's last day cooking for them. Kurt, clueless, asks Guv why he's being fired. Guv explains that Kurt is useless in combat and they can only have 4 members, so they need someone stronger, like a mage. Kurt begs to stay, but Guv kicks him in the stomach and says that's final. The next day, Kurt leaves the village with no money and no direction. He ends up in the city of Sa, desperate and barely holding on to his last pennies. He finds a temp agency and gets an interview. His work history? He was part of the Flaming Dragon Fang but only did chores. Still, the party's name looks good on his resume. Kurt's aptitude test reveals that his combat skills are all rated G rank, meaning he's basically useless in a fight. But Kel, the receptionist, suggests he might have a hidden talent, like alchemy or blacksmithing, though the person who evaluates those skills is on vacation. Kurt needs work now, so Kel suggests he try lifting a sandbag. When he does, she sees he has the strength for construction work, and she helps him get a job at the city wall repair site. The Margrave is skeptical about Kurt, but he gives him a chance. Kurt gets to work mixing cement, and by the time the Margrave returns, Kurt has already finished a huge section of the wall. The Margrave is shocked but impressed. He tells Kurt he's done enough for the day and gives him a pouch of money. Kurt can't believe it, it's more than he ever made with the hero party. Over the next few days, Kurt works hard. But just when he thinks things are going great, the Margrave fires him, saying he's done enough. So much for his new job. Kurt asks why, and the Margrave explains that the wall repairs were meant to provide jobs for those in poverty. However, Kurt is too efficient, and if he keeps working, there will be no work left for anyone else. The Margrave isn't upset with Kurt, but based on his abilities, which seem to be at least double his rank, he would be better suited for work in the royal capital. He gives Kurt a lump sum as compensation for being let go and walks away. Kurt, misunderstanding the situation, thinks the Margrave fired him because he was a terrible worker. He heads back to the temp agency to tell Kel about being fired and that it will still take a few days before his trade attributes are appraised. Just then, they hear a commotion at the front desk, where a girl is trying to post a recruitment ad. The receptionist tells her no one would agree to work under the terrible conditions she's offering. Despite this, the girl insists, causing a disturbance. Kel steps in to investigate and learns that the girl wants to hire a miner to excavate an unexplored mountain but refuses to offer upfront payment, only promising payment if the excavation succeeds. Kel explains that no one would agree to these terms and suggests the girl find investors, but she can't because she has to pay taxes by the end of the week or risk losing the mine. Kurt overhears and, seeing an opportunity, volunteers, explaining that he has experience from helping with mining back in his village. Kel asks if he's sure about accepting, considering the risk of not getting paid. But before he can answer, the girl dismisses him, saying she initially hoped to hire a dwarf. However, since she can't afford the upfront payment for one, she reluctantly agrees to hire Kurt. As Kurt and the girl head out, Kel feels bad for him, thinking the job isn't worth his time. Her coworker interrupts to tell her that a bank transfer has arrived the remaining payment the Margrave promised for Kurt's work. Expecting around 50 silver, Kel is stunned when she sees it's actually 200 gold. She's so shocked by the amount that she trips over some sandbags, which her coworker explains are used to measure mana reserves. They usually don't react with regular people, but Kurt had struggled with them a few days ago, which makes Kel wonder if he's really just an ordinary kid. Meanwhile, Kurt and the girl, Alicia, head to her campsite. Kurt is surprised to see only one tent, and Alicia suggests they share it. Kurt, embarrassed, says he couldn't sleep next to her. Alicia gets upset, thinking Kurt is just flattering her, but when Kurt insists he genuinely thinks she's cute, she realizes he's sincere. She gives him a boiled potato for dinner, and Kurt, grateful since it's been a long time since anyone cooked for him, appreciates both the meal and her company. The next morning, Alicia wakes up to find Kurt sleeping under a tree. She feels bad about making him sleep outside, but then she notices that her jacket has been repaired. Kurt admits he fixed it, impressing her with his sewing skills. She wonders if he'll be good at mining, but it's too late to find someone else, so they get to work. Kurt asks Alicia if she has a plan for where to mine, but she was planning to dig randomly. Kurt tells her she'll never find anything that way and takes her to a section of the mountain, where he quickly locates a rock full of gemstones. Alicia is amazed that he found them so easily. In no time, Kurt identifies every gemstone in the area. She realizes that selling them could pay off her debt, but Kurt tells her she can't sell them as they are. Instead, he turns them into magic crystals, despite Alicia's concern that only a few mages in the kingdom can do so. Kurt, however, does it instantly, leaving her speechless. Once Kurt finishes, he allows Alicia to sell the crystals. She heads to the city's customs agency, where the agent questions her about where she got them. To avoid further questions, she flashes her royal family emblem, bluffing since she no longer works for them. The agent lets her pass, and she travels to the capital. There, she visits an old friend, Mimiko, who's shocked at the quality of the crystals, realizing they contain 10 times the usual amount of mana. Mimiko offers Alicia 500 gold for them. Before she leaves, Mimiko asks Alicia to promise not to sell such powerful crystals anywhere else and to give her the name of the creator. Alicia refuses to share Kurt's name without his permission. Mimiko, a court mage, insists but ultimately can't get Alicia to comply. She asks Alicia to make sure Kurt doesn't go to another nation and offers him a title of count and access to the Royal Research Lab if he agrees to work for the royal family. Alicia returns to the mountain, only to find that Kurt has built an entire house in the time she was gone. Setting her shock aside, Alicia tells Kurt that a friend of hers wants to hire him as a royal mage. If he takes the job, he'll basically become nobility fancy title, big paycheck, sweet benefits. Kurt's not buying it. He thinks it's too good to be true, but Alicia assures him it's a legit offer. When she asks what he wants to do, Kurt says he's gonna pass. Alicia is stunned. Who turns down being a royal mage? And honestly, same, because his reason is dumb. He says he doesn't want to be in a position above others and still wants to go crawling back to the Flaming Dragon Guild, even if he has to beg them to take him back as their errand boy. Speaking of Flaming Dragon, they're currently getting absolutely wrecked by a tree monster. Gulliver's fire magic isn't working, so he asks Marlipist for healing. She's been trying, but her magic's on the fritz too. He turns to the new guy for backup, but guess what? He doesn't know fire magic either. That was supposed to be Gulliver's job. The team is a hot mess without Kurt around, and only Bandon seems to notice the whole squad is falling apart. Back with Kurt, he's still mining gems for Alicia. He tells her he found a good vein yesterday, and he's eager to dig more. She appreciates the enthusiasm but worries he might be overworking himself. He reassures her that he got a solid 6 hours of sleep. That blows Alicia's mind. She starts doing the math on how he managed to build a whole house and still sleep. But Kurt thinks she's mad about him sleeping too much and apologizes for being lazy. Alicia really needs to sit this man down and explain just how ridiculous his strength is, but she has no idea where to start. They head out to do more mining. Kurt leads her to a forest spot and says she should find good gems here, just don't dig past 500 meters, as if someone could accidentally do that. He then heads off to another site, promising to check in later. Ulycia spends the whole day digging and eventually finds a massive topaz gem. She'd been giving Kurt all the profits before since he found most of the gems, but this one's hers so she can finally pay her taxes. She could ask Kurt to turn it into a magic gem and make even more money, but she doesn't want to take advantage of his kindness. Curious how Kurt's doing, she checks on him and sure enough, he's gone way overboard again. He built an entire tunnel system in just 8 hours. When he pops out, he says he only found a little of the gem he was looking for. Everything else, just worthless rocks he plans to toss. Ulycia peeks into the cart and sees rocks that are way too shiny to be junk. She asks what they are, and Kurt casually says, "Oh, just mithril." Turns out, in his village, mithril was so common they used to throw it away. Ulycia is speechless. She then asks what gem he was looking for if mithril is considered trash. Kurt pulls out a small rock and says he was hunting for orichalcum. You know, the metal of the gods, worth millions per gram? Yeah, he found a box of it. Ulycia didn't even know you could find orichalcum around here. Kurt just shrugs and says, "You can mine it anywhere, you just have to dig 8 kilometers. At that point, Ulycia calls it a day. Her topaz covers her taxes, so her contract with Kurt is over. But poor Kurt still thinks he needs a new job. No one's told him about the mountain of gold in his bank account. On his way to the job agency, he runs into Bandana. He's happy to see her and asks why she's around. She tells him she's no longer with Flaming Dragon. Turns out, after that tree monster disaster, Golova went to a 5-star restaurant to cheer himself up, but every bite reminded him that compared to Kurt's cooking, everything else tastes like reheated cardboard. Golova loses his temper big time, wrecks the restaurant, and storms off without paying. In a sketchy alley, Bandana catches up with him and is like, "Dude, you went way too far." But Golova's too busy rage craving good food to care. He tells Bandana to go drag Kurt back even if she has to break his bones. Yeah, Golova's spiraling. Bandana decides not to argue with Crazy Town. Instead, she snatches his teleportation crystal and runs off. Just as she leaves, she sees the city guards heading toward Golova. Without that crystal, he's toast. Bandana finds Kurt and breaks the news well, some of it about the group disbanding. Kurt's pretty bummed because he was hoping to rejoin, still clueless about how much of a jerk Golova really was. Bandana, who never actually cared about Golova in the first place, she was just spying on Kurt, can't believe Kurt still wants to go back. Since Kurt's clearly job hunting, Bandana has an idea. A friend of hers, an elite Italier master, a big deal, like Viscount level big, needs help in her workshop. Kurt says he's in, so Bandana hands him a map and sends him on his merry way. Kurt finds the place, but it looks more like a normal house. He knocks, and a tiny elf girl named Michelle answers. Turns out she's not the master, just the assistant. She's thrilled to have help, though, and drags him into a kitchen that smells like a sea monster's armpit. She apologizes things have been hectic and runs off, leaving Kurt to clean. As Kurt finishes cleaning the kitchen, he realizes Michelle never told him what to do next. So, he starts wandering the hallways to look for her. He went into a room looking for Michelle. He met a girl with a strange curse. He asked if he could touch it, and when he did, he realized she couldn't feel anything anymore. He suspected the curse was slowly consuming her whole body. Concerned, he told her he'd make some food for her, since she needed it, and went back to the kitchen. Meanwhile, Ulycia is chatting with Mimiko about some magic materials Kurt found. Even without converting them to crystals, they're worth 50,000 gold coins. Ulycia's like, "This kid is either gonna be kidnapped or assassinated." Mimiko agrees. Ulycia wants to turn Kurt into an Italier master himself, so he has clout and protection, and she even plans to be his bodyguard. Problem is Kurt is too humble and oblivious to realize how insanely gifted he is. Back in the workshop, Kurt finishes cooking porridge for the cursed girl. Michelle and the real Atelier master, Alia, come up from the basement and are stunned by the sparkling clean kitchen. Even more stunned when they find Kurt cooking. Alia's like, "Wait, which girl did you meet exactly?" Kurt explains and promises to keep it a secret. She pays him generously for his help and tells him to come back tomorrow. Later, Alia brings the porridge to the girl, reminding her she's supposed to stay hidden. But the girl, whose name is Lee, says Kurt seemed trustworthy, and besides, she's tired of not trusting anyone. She takes a bite, and then collapses. Alia freaks out, thinking Kurt poisoned her, and prepares to track him down, but surprise. Lee suddenly gets up and says she feels amazing. The curse is gone. Alia is completely baffled. Curses like that aren't supposed to break from a bowl of porridge. At the same time, the secret group who cursed Lee is holding an emergency meeting because someone just broke their assassination curse. Plan B, something much more deadly. Later that night, Alia and Lee head to Mimiko's place. Lee reveals her face and Mimiko immediately recognizes her as the third princess. Turns out the curse was a hit attempt, likely meant to spark a war, since Lee is the only child born from the king and a royal from a rival kingdom. Mimiko is relieved she's okay, but shocked the curse is broken. Lee tells her it wasn't her doing, it was Kurt. And the moment they hear his name, both Mimiko and Ulisha go full panic mode. Ulisha can't believe this weird, sweet porridge making Kurt broke a royal-level curse with breakfast. They plan to reward him later, but first, they need to find the snake who tampered with Lee's anti-curse defenses. Only 3 people had access to her room. Riskatz, the general. Tristan Maynol, the bishop. Isadora, the third queen. They can't just go accusing royalty, so Ophelia comes up with a sneaky plan. Lee just turned 15, which means it's time for the royal gap year, a 1-year journey to train and grow. Ophelia wants to use that as bait. They'll fake a destination and fake a mentor, and hopefully the would-be assassins will take the bait and reveal themselves. Of course, they'll need someone convincing to play the role of the Atelier master. Ulisha pulls out a crystal made by Kurt, and the moment Ophelia sees it, she's like, "Yeah, this is art." Kurt's hired. Again, without knowing it. Meanwhile, back at Ophelia's house the next day, Kurt shows up for work and finds a note. "We're not home." Bummer. He runs into Michelle, who explains that Ophelia and Lee left suddenly yesterday and haven't returned. With no work and no leads, Kurt heads to the guild to grab some food. While eating, he overhears a group freaking out they lost their porter for a mission and might have to cancel it. Kurt, ever the humble tank, walks up and offers to help. He admits he's useless in a fight but great at carrying heavy stuff. Stina, one of the party members, laughs at him. "Scrawny little Kurt, please." Her brother Ken gives her a smack for being rude, but also doubts Kurt can handle the job, especially since they're hunting golems that weigh over 200 kilograms. Kurt's response? He casually lifts 2 party members at once, including Ken, who's wearing over 150 kilograms of armor. Everyone just stares like, "Okay then, welcome aboard." On the way to the mission, they introduce themselves. Ken is their heavy warrior, who prefers punching over swordplay. Danzo is a samurai. Stina is a ranger. Their 4th member is out sick, hence Kurt's cameo. Kurt is genuinely touched they gave someone like him a chance. He's used to being treated like trash in his old group, Dragonfang. But then, disaster strikes. A slime attacks Kurt. He screams like a horror movie victim. Everyone rushes to help, but it's just a slime. Stina tells him to stab the core. Kurt tries. He fails. He accidentally stabs himself. Stina sighs and finishes the slime off. She's shocked at how bad he is in a fight. But they all tell him not to worry, he's the porter, not the swordsman. Kurt is floored. They're being nice, supportive. Is this what a healthy party feels like? They reach the cave and spread glow moss for light. Kurt spots poop, goblin poop. It's fresh, which means goblins are nearby. Kurt starts sweating. He couldn't even kill a slime. Stina says it's fine unless it's a horde. Guess what shows up? A horde. One goblin calls for backup, and now they're trapped between goblins front and back. Danzo and Ken realize they're outnumbered and probably doomed. Kurt suddenly finds a secret passage, which is great, except they can't all escape together. Danzo and Ken nod at Stina. She gets the message. She shoves Kurt into the secret room and slams the door. Kurt protests, but this was their plan. Danzo and Ken will stay behind to lure the goblins away. It's a suicide mission. But to them, dying to protect friends is the most honorable death. Stina tries to keep it together and tells Kurt they have to move. She spreads glow moss to find a way out, and realizes with horror they're not in just any room. They're in a boss room. And guess what their new roommate is? An iron dragon. Back in town, La wants to see Kurt again. Ulisha picks the lock to his room like it's Tuesday, but Kurt's not there. A mysterious voice says he went on a mission to the northeastern caves. When Ulisha runs out to check who it was, poof, they're gone. But she knows that cave is goblin territory, which means Kurt might be in serious trouble. Ulisha tells Lee to stay put. Rescuing people from monster caves isn't exactly on the royal to-do list. But Lee insists on coming along. She's been training her magic for years and isn't some helpless princess. She's ready to fight. Meanwhile, Ulisha realizes it would be super irresponsible to leave the actual princess alone, so she agrees to take Lee with her to the cave. Once inside, they notice fresh glow moss on the walls, which means someone was here very recently. La casts a sensory spell, and Ulisha thinks she's going to listen for Kurt, but nope. La drops to all fours and starts sniffing like a bloodhound. She was only around Kurt for like 10 minutes, but somehow that was enough for her to memorize his scent. A few sniffs later, bingo. She picks up Kurt's trail and also hears sounds of a battle down the hall. She buffs Ulisha's stats and points her toward the fight. Danzo and KS are hanging in there, barely, but they're clearly on the edge. Thankfully, Ulisha shows up and wipes out the goblins with one flashy swing. Back inside the secret room, Sina drops to her knees, fully defeated because, hello, they're trapped in a boss room with an iron dragon. She apologizes to Kurt for dragging him into a guaranteed death situation. But Kurt, completely unfazed. He casually walks up to the dragon, jumps on its tail, and slices it clean off with a tiny tap from his dagger. Sina watches in shock as Kurt disassembles this dragon piece by piece like he's prepping dinner. The same guy who couldn't kill a slime is now dismantling a boss monster like it's made of Play-Doh. She's actually a little scared. Just then, Ulisha bursts into the room, ready to rescue him, only to find Kurt standing in front of a pile of dragon scraps. Kurt's relieved she's there and immediately asks her to go help Danzo and KS. But she's already way ahead of him. They're safe and only a little banged up. Everyone regroups in the room to talk things over. Danzo and KS thank Ulisha for saving their butts, but she brushes it off and turns to Kurt with big news. She's opening a new atelier and wants him to join. Kurt hesitates because he's technically still with this party, but Ken encourages him to go for it. It's a huge opportunity. Even better, Ulisha needs people to guard the new atelier, so she asks Danzo, Sina, and Ken to sign up, and they're totally down. Ken's so hyped he suggests they throw a party when they get back to town. Oh, and before anything else, Ulisha reminds Kurt to go get his skills appraised because she arranged someone special to do it. A few hours later, Kurt arrives at the agency and meets Mimiko, a royal court mage who's there to check out his non-combat abilities. After the test, she tells him all his skills are B rank. Except, that was a big fat lie. In reality, all of Kurt's abilities are triple his rank, and his mana pool is insanely huge. Mimiko nearly passes out from the results. If anyone found out just how powerful he really is, it could literally cause national panic or worse, a cover-up involving eliminating witnesses. Which is awkward because Kilshell was eavesdropping the whole time.